Hi everybody, Emery from PDMG here. Today we are going to be talking about variations on Amazon. What is a variation and how do they work and what makes them up? Okay, so let's get started first with what is a variation. So a variation is a combination of items that may differ by size, color, style, etc. And these items are combined into one single detail page on Amazon for you to shop, called a variation. So let's pop over here to Amazon real quick and just look at an example. So I've already got one pulled up here. This is just this Adidas shoe that I pulled up, and you can see that on one detail page, it comes in all these different mini colors and a bunch of different sizes that you can choose from. So this is a really great example of a variation. Okay, let's pop back over here. Okay, so let's talk about what makes up a variation. Let's break it down a little bit so we can really understand how it works. So a variation is made up of two different parts. One is the parent listing and the other is a child listing. So the parent is the listing that holds all of the items together. So think of a shelf at the store holding all of the merchandise. This parent is not a purchasable product on Amazon and will not display on the detail page. The listing will appear in your inventory, though, under Manage Inventory, if you create a parent for the variation that you're listing. If you don't create a parent for the listing in your inventory, your items will still be in that variation, but it won't appear in your inventory. So it's a good idea to create it. When you're creating a parent listing, make sure that you do not contribute any offer-specific information to the listing. So like color, size, or price, as this is not a purchasable product. The parent itself is not purchasable, so that wouldn't make sense to enter that information here. You'll also want to refrain from contributing any offer-specific information to the title of the listing. So same thing here. You don't want to put size small in your title. That wouldn't make sense because it's the parent and it's not purchasable. Okay, so now let's talk about the child listing. So a child listing is the product that a buyer will purchase from you. This item will display on the detail page if you have the available inventory. If your child listing is not active, it just won't show in the variation on the detail page. And if you click on it and it's, there's no inventory or it's inactive for whatever reason, it will just show the next available child in the variation. So if you try to think about it like you have one parent and multiple children underneath that parent for your various sizes, colors, what have you. If a child breaks off from a parent, you might hear Amazon's support refer to it as an orphan child because that child no longer has a parent. If your child listing contains the same values as another child listing within the same variation, this is considered a shadow child. And this is definitely something you want to try to avoid because it gets really confusing. For example, let's say you've got two children in a variation. They cannot share the same size. So you can't put small twice in your two children that's under one parent. That wouldn't make sense. You'd want to have small, medium, large, extra large, something like that. For the listings to display as separate listings and somebody to be able to shop the small or the large, the values need to be different. Okay, so now let's talk about how do I create a variation. There are three different ways to go about creating a variation. One is through the Add a Product tool, which would, you would just go through it like you were adding a new product. Two is through the variation wizard, and three is through a feed file upload. And all three of the above ways allow you to create a new variation or list against an existing variation. PDMG does recommend using the feed file upload process when creating variations because this process is the most comprehensive and provides informational details for the report, whether it was successful or not. And if you received errors, the nice thing is the system will explain what the errors are, and then you can go about fixing them. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of using variations. So when your items are listed in a variation or this, sort of grouping, the buyers can view multiple similar products on one single detail page, which just makes a smooth buying experience. And having all of your similar products on one detail page can potentially drive more sales. For example, if your products differ in color, the buyer may purchase more than one product from you, but just in various colors if they can see them both side by side. And this just means that your listings are easily accessible under a single listing in your inventory. Okay, so let's talk about some important notes and just sort of different things to keep in mind when you're creating variations and working on them in Seller Central. Okay, so to list your products in a variation, they must be under the same brand name and the same category. They must also be the exact same product and only differ by size, color, or style, something to that nature. If your product is physically different, so even if it just has a little bit different packaging or something to that nature, it cannot be listed in the same variation. So it has to be the same product across the board. The only difference is, each product has a different color or a different size. Okay, going on down here, Amazon has different variation themes that you can choose from based on the category that you're listing your products under. So whether it's shoes, clothes, what have you. And you just want to make sure that you're selecting the theme that best suits your product. Amazon's seller performance team is very strict when it comes to following the variation creation policy. And if they see that you're violating it, they might break your variation apart, which would not be good. And they could even prevent you from creating variations in the future. So we definitely don't want that to happen. Let's talk about reviews with variations. So reviews are shared across your variation only if the category matches across all listings. That's why we talked about that above. It's important when you're parenting and creating your variation, creating your parent, creating your child, to make sure all of your listings are in the same category. If you do have issues with the reviews syncing, Amazon support will be able to assist you with this issue, assuming they're all in the same category. If Amazon Retail is the variation creator or is listing against the variation, you might have to contact Amazon support to assist with adding the listing to the variation. And just make sure you provide reasoning as to why the listing should be in the variation. When your products are part of a variation, only one of the listings will appear on your seller storefront. So just keep that in mind. When you're searching for your variation product, only one item will appear within the search results on Amazon.com. And this is typically going to be either the best seller or the best ranked item in that variation. And this is just something that's automated by the system. You cannot change it. If you do want your variations to appear in a specific order on the detail page, this is totally separate from what we just talked about with the search results. You need to provide Amazon support with the exact order that you want, and then they will submit a request with an internal team to update the variation sort order. And this does take time, so just, make sure you are able to wait a little bit and give yourself plenty of time when you go to do this. But it does usually get resolved by Amazon support. It might just take a little while. Another note here is if the brand name changes, the variation will eventually break apart as this information needs to match across all the listings, including the parent. Even just like a space or a capital versus lowercase letter, anything at all can cause the variation to break apart. So you really want to make sure that brand name matches all across your listings. When you are contributing information to your child listings, make sure that all the information is consistent. I know we've already talked about this, but it's really important just to make sure that you are providing the best buying experience to the customer, and the detail page is very clean. So for example, you wouldn't want to have a bunch of different bullet points for each child. You want to keep them, as close as possible. For example, you might want to format your size, color, style names the same to prevent buyer confusion. So that's another important thing to do. Like in addition to the bullets is make sure the way you name things is really consistent. And this just makes it easy for the Amazon shopper. Okay, so I think that about covers it on variations. I'll include some links down on the bottom for you guys, but if you have questions, let us know. Thanks so much for watching.